Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 12th episode of the Branch Out podcast, hosted by Vincent Emmanuel.
Yes, we are Vincent Emmanuel, and today we have with us one reoccurring face, Loris. Hi, Loris. How are you?
Matt.
Hi guys, thanks for having me again. So
Of course.
Pleasure.
I'm doing good, and I hope you guys do too.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And we have someone new to the podcast. His name is Michael, and he comes all the way from Paris. Is that correct? Or
I am currently in the région parisienne, which is not Paris itself, but
okay.
yes, close enough. If
Cool.
Paris got hit with an atomic bomb, I'd be in trouble. Put it like that. Yeah.
Great. You've given us that picture to start with.
Mhm.
Would you like to introduce yourself and just sort of tell our audience who you are and what you do and what you like?
Yeah. Well, I'm a very pleasant person. Just for starters. No. I sort of you'd think I've had 40 plus years to figure out this whole who I am thing, but when you're told, oh, would you like to come on a podcast, suddenly you realize you don't really know who you are, anything about yourself. I guess I'm. My first sort of question is, well, why am I why would I be on this in this conversation? Like, who really knows? What qualifies me, shall I say, to be speaking about this? And I guess it's everyday conversations for everyday people. So I guess what qualifies me is that most days I'm an everyday person, I suppose. That even makes sense. So I'm an everyday person.
Are you sometimes
I guess-
Batman or?
No, not even. Just like a really everyday person. Just like
Okay.
no. I suppose what would qualify me seriously is that I'm curious. I spend a lot of time thinking about things in general. I wouldn't say to this particular subject in particular, but of course it comes up, and you can't really just think too deeply about life or anything without coming across this. So
Yeah.
I'm somebody who has freely chosen to give this a lot of thought in my life, or to give things a lot of thought in my life.
Cool.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah. Yep.
So you would be an everyday person in your.
I would
Are-
be, yes.
You're not, for example, a professor or I don't know, an
No.
astronaut or something like
No.
that.
No. I sometimes, people have used the word genius, but hey,
Including
I'm
you.
not.
Are you like
Yeah.
an everyday genius?
I'm a humble, everyday person who, would never blow one's own trumpet as to, no, I'm kidding. No,
Never.
no.
Okay. Well, we don't really have any
And this is
qualifications as such for coming
this
on
is
the
my
show.
This is my first, sort of time doing anything like this. So,
Mhm.
if I seem like I don't really know what I'm doing, it's only because I don't really know what I'm doing.
Hey, we've not been doing this for very long either.
Exactly. It's only the 12th.
I noticed.
Like Emmanuel
12th
said, we're not
episode,
qualified to do this. We're just
Yes. Awesome.
having fun.
Awesome.
Loris is the only one who's qualified to be here.
Yeah, he's.
Yeah, absolutely not. No.
Well,
All right.
how was your week?
A lot. It was a lot.
Your week was a lot?
Yeah.
Good,
It was
mine too.
not an empty week. I recently started a new job, and so this week I took over more responsibility because one of our team members was on holiday. So my second week already, then I'm already like taking on significant responsibility. That was a lot, but it went reasonably well.
That seems to be a reoccurring theme, that when someone new comes to the company, suddenly someone is like someone who's working similarly to that person goes
Mhm.
on holiday, and it happened to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just because of Easter.
Yeah, there's always a reason. So
Yeah,
it's Easter.
It might be coincidence. It might also be the fact that we tend to hire new people when some of our people are about to go on holiday, and it's like, hey, we need to, we need. So it could
I
be
guess it makes sense. Yeah,
causation, reverse
Yeah.
causation.
I'll
Like we're
ask
gonna be
them
short
later.
staffed next month. Should probably press in to hire that new guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that was partly why I was hired because when the guy isn't there, the whole team is kind of like, "Ugh."
Okay. Well, then it's not much of a mystery left, is it?
Not really.
That's
No.
why they hired you. It's not much of a mystery that he took off soon after.
Yeah, it would be
Okay.
interesting. What about you?
Um,
That stuff to do?
same old, same old.
Mm.
Just kids were having holidays this past 2 weeks. Yeah. And
That must have been nice for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Leona, my daughter, she's been doing that's the funny thing. In English, what's the word for snooper?
Oh my God. Depends what it means.
It's kind of like an internship, like a
It's not-
1 day
yeah.
internship.
Is it?
Kind of. I mean, you just
Yeah,
go
I would
to a
say that,
company.
yes.
Okay, there you
Okay. So how old is she?
go. 16.
Right. Okay. So in France, it's called they have a word for it too. It's not schnooper though. It's something like
Baguette.
a stagiaire, I think is the word.
Okay.
Stagiaire.
Stagiaire.
Hmm.
And it's sort of like
sounds like
an
staging.
internship. Internship, something like that. An
Mhm.
internship where you kind of get a temporary job, just to learn what it's like to work and
Yep.
have a job.
Yeah.
And
The thing is, with most
have to be
schnoopers,
somewhere
they
on
go
top.
for just like a day or two.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
But
There's that.
she's
too.
going for 2 weeks
Yeah.
Yes.
So hers is quite
to
long.
the same place.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been
Sounds
good
like
for her. She's doing that in a florist place in the center of Bern.
Yeah, I've seen her work on Instagram. She's posting it in her
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
It looks really cool.
Yeah, I was
nice.
surprised. Like the flower arrangements she put together were good, and they sold as well.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
Will she be seeing any of that money?
not now. Yeah. So
What about you, Loris? How interesting is your life?
Yeah, I would say same old, yes. Yeah, I work as a software developer, and the past week has been surprisingly easy, I would say. We're currently we don't have enough people. They're constantly searching for or hiring, but in that field that I am, it's very very hard to find the right person that is qualified to do the job. So we're currently pretty stressed out, but it's been okay, and spent some time with my family yesterday. So yeah, it has been
Nice.
a good week. Yes.
Hey, if you'd like, we can put a link in the description where people can apply for the job. Ease in your workload.
I mean, it's fair. I actually I eat a lot in the same restaurant. It's an Indian restaurant, and I told the guy that works there. He asked me how I'm doing and what my job is, because I'm showing up so often. And then he said, yeah, if we're in trouble, he can call some of his Pakistani friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, we
Good to
we
know.
didn't do like a lot of good. We haven't done really good if we hired people from those
Pakistan or
those
India.
countries just because of the language barrier and working remote. And it's our projects are you need time to be able to really contribute to them.
Yeah, you can't just jump in and start.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I heard from a friend of mine. He was saying that I think it was the SBB or it was the Post, one of those two, and they had this really big project, and they well, the guy before him who was in charge of it, they tried to kind of cut some costs, and they hired a bunch of people from India to do the project. So they flew them in to Switzerland. They did basic training, orientation, and so on. And it was also some kind of development, like software development project. And 8 months later or so, the whole thing was just a total mess.
Yes,
And
yes.
most of the team still had huge difficulties with German, but also difficulties with English. And in the end, so then the project was sort of passed on to him, and he ended up basically cleaning house, and the vast majority of this imported workforce was exported back, repatriated back to their homeland, and he had to basically formulate a new team, mostly with Swiss, but also some German developers and others. So
Yeah,
it,
I
it
think it's
was
often like that. I mean, those programmers are usually they work very fast. Like you can tell them do this, that, and they're really fast, but it backfires like a few weeks later if you need to change the code and you like no chance you're
You're gonna spot the
decrypting
problem.
what the hell they wrote
It's
there.
just a mess. Like a
Yes.
bunch of
yeah.
Yeah, I've
Well,
often wondered how that works, coding as a team, because you're constantly creating variables and stuff like that, and you're like, I'm gonna call this TTT or XXX.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can you have to kind of agree on so that you can refer to each other's. I don't know really much about. I don't know anything about coding, but what I do know about coding, it made it very mysterious to me how you could ever have a team of coders like.
Yeah, you need a lot of conventions. You need to write down how you're gonna write the
Gonna
code. The
yeah.
problem is if you're like not operating on a level like Google or something, the projects aren't large enough to
To be well organized.
justify that sort of preparation.
yeah.
Because does each project need its own convention because of its uniqueness?
It
It
depends on the
shouldn't.
project, yes. It shouldn't, but sometimes it does if it's very specific.
Yeah, if you're using multiple languages, for example, as well,
Yeah,
then
or
you might have
different
to.
frameworks and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Um, I've seen a lot of that where I come from too, and it's developers are another animal. Let's say. They're another race altogether.
You're the one with the whip, aren't you? In your job.
I'm the one who so I've been working in my company for 10 years now. And yeah, I've gotten a lot of pushback from developers who don't like standards. Who don't like boundaries. So
Yeah, I think I know that.
you can understand that. So I'm sort of like the evil policeman who
You're the devil. You're the devil because
I'm
I'll tell you
Satan
why. I'll tell
reincarnate.
you why. No, because developers have a god complex.
I wouldn't say
They
that.
hold
though.
all the power.
No, but because what are you doing? You're creating basically. I mean, you're as close to creating intelligence
Life.
as we've ever gotten. Basically, you're creating. Yeah, you're taking. I saw this thing because I tend to click on things on so I get these advertisements, and so on Facebook I got this advertisement for this toy for kids, and it's basically like a board full of like little levers and turny things, and you drop colored marbles down one end, and basically what it does is it teaches you how a computer uses an electron to do computing. So using it goes, this is an if gate. This is an if then. It had these little levers, and as you drop the marble, and it had like a whole game associated with it. So basically, by dropping these colored marbles, anyway, it kind of was very eye-opening to me that computers are in essence just a little electron going around, bouncing around, going here or there. If this gate is open, it goes that way, right? And when it comes down to it, look at everything we've done with what basically what a marble can do. Of course, it's happening much faster. It's happening at like millions of marbles per second. But
Yeah.
what we
That's
call
crazy to
parts,
think about.
and to think about it, yeah, this whole thing, what we're doing right now, the graphics, the sound, the whole system for hosting us, and much more. These operating systems, Windows, everything, it's all just a little electron bouncing around, and falling this way and going that way. And I think that to have been part of making something like that, even, I mean, I've made some simple little programs just using like HTML and JavaScript and something, and the rush you get from starting with a blank page and then like typing away, and then like you actually get a page that has functionality and does stuff. And yeah, I mean, I can completely understand having a total God complex. And the last thing you want is someone like you coming around and telling me what I can and can and can't do. Like, do you not
God
know
can't
who
have
you're
a
talking
God.
to?
Yes.
If it weren't for me, there'd be nothing. Nothing.
You are the creator.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Yeah.
Speaking of the electron, was it always going to become part of a program? Or did we decide to make it part of the program?
Or was it always part of a program?
Totally off the topic. Have you ever heard of the one electron universe?
Nope.
Nope. Oh, okay.
Nope.
But there's something now. Okay, again, I'm not really. There's something about. Oh crap! Oh, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it. It's something because there are two things in the universe. One is exactly the reverse of the other, like an electron, and there's like a reverse electron or something. Gosh, some physicist is gonna like
Proton?
flood your. No, I don't remember. But there's this
Vitamin?
theory that nobody believes. Oh, shut up. There's this theory that no one takes seriously, but it's just like non-refutable. Also, there's actually just one electron, and it's going forward and backward in time, and it's all the electrons and all the whatever the other thing is going the other way, and it's just that the whole universe is this one electron just going back and forth in time, and it's the one electron theory, and it's not to be taken seriously, but who knows,
It's not to be taken seriously, but if you're high, that could
No,
occupy
but
you for a long time.
there are some people who are not high who are like, well, damn it, I don't know how to contradict that, but I don't.
Yeah, it's one of those spaghetti god things. It's like,
oh no,
prove it's
don't
not
don't get me started on the spaghetti god thing. That is so full of
what
crap.
you don't believe.
I'm such an atheist when it comes to spaghetti god.
Hey,
Yeah.
we've at least seen spaghetti. That's more than you can ask for any other.
That is exactly what defines it as not God.
Every Italian just clicked off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it could be your God.
Oh.
To each his own. But whatever.
Who wants to explain to us what determinism is?
Well, actually, the first time I heard that word was mid-discussion with Loris. So I've spoken with Loris about this before. And it was a very interesting discussion. And he actually... Okay, so what happened is we were... this was on New Year's.
We were smoking weed and...
No. We weren't being bad. Don't smoke. Don't do drugs, kids.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Don't do drugs, kids. What, you saying kids should do drugs?
No.
We can't. This is how it's live.
Jeez.
No, we were just doing the midnight chat as you do. And I've had sort of this idea for a while that like what we do is sort of predetermined because people imagine what happens in your head. They almost handle it not like it's a physical thing, like it's a spiritual something else. But I had the belief, and still do, that what goes on in your head is purely physical. So it's kind of always going to happen because it's just like a bunch of chain reactions happening. And so I just brought this up and we started talking about it, and Loris already knew about this idea and knew it was called determinism. So I thought that was interesting that I didn't even know this wasn't I didn't know it was a thing. But I guess it's a conclusion that a lot of people will come to because so much is being explained by deities or by spirits or the universe turning the knobs, and then coming up with the idea of no, it's all just physical isn't that crazy of an idea.
And is that why you like the idea? Because it's different?
No, it's not that crazy of an idea. It's not that.
And
I think actually most people, well, I think it's interesting because it's not an idea that you feel. Like,
It's
everyone feels
unintuitive.
like they have free will.
you mean it's non-intuitive?
Right, yeah.
It's a very rational idea, a very
Mhm.
rational concept, in my opinion.
But it kind of goes
Pretty
against what
logic.
you feel
Yes.
as being a person, which is why it's kind of, it's a
Which
fun
is why we argued
contradiction.
for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So, Loris, do you want to just break down for us what determinism is or isn't?
Well, I can just give the very simple definition, and then you guys can like correct me or extend my.
You can't
I
read
think-
it off Wikipedia.
I can if you
No
want
cheating.
that.
No, you can't.
Okay. Determinism is the idea that every action, everything, every occurring event is determined or caused by previous events, and because of that rule, everything that happens is predetermined because it's already set in stone, because it's gonna be caused by events that occur.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's based on, I think, Newtonian,
Yes.
Newton, sort of kind of really in material, what do you call it, made it a thing, and not him specifically, but his work hit the concept that if you know the position of something, and if you know the conditions of something at any one given time, if you know, for example, the mass of an arrow and the speed that the arrow is flying, and you know the wind resistance, you will know exactly where that arrow will land. Or given your knowledge of the present state, if you knew the entire state of the universe right now, then you would be able to figure out basically the rest of the universe, the future, because everything is. The thing about determinism, it does rest on the assumption. Okay, there's x equal, x causes y, right? It kind of goes a step further and says y is the only effect that x could have caused.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good definition. Yes.
So is it like fate?
Fatalism, yes, it's
In a
definitely
way, yeah.
fatal, yeah. But I don't see it as very distinct. Like, you sort of seemed to contrast it from theology, and it's actually not distinguished from theology. I mean, you can't even talk about determinism without talking about John Calvin. Calvinism. No, I mean, that's like,
Who's that?
John Calvin is the guy who started Calvinism, which is it's a Protestant. It's the Protestant. In Germany you have Lutheranism. Calvinism, I believe, Holland is Calvinist, the Netherlands, and I'm not exactly sure on the history. History's not my thing. But Calvinism is a main. I might be actually really wrong about that. So yeah, nobody quote me on that. But whatever. There's Calvinism, and they're the ones in Christianity, and that everyone looks at them and like, no, Calvinism can't be true, because they believe in like the absolute sovereignty of God. That is to say that God, and even, I mean, okay, I don't know what you guys know like about theology, but you know what salvation is supposed to be, right? Even somebody who's saved, you didn't even choose to be saved. God predestined you to be saved. God set some people to be damned and some people to be saved. And who are we to call that unfair? God's in charge. He can do what he wants.
Well,
Yeah. So there is it's you definitely weren't the first to think about it. It's it's been a thing for a long time.
Well, the reason why I contrasted it with religion is because if we're to assume that determinism is what actually is happening and that everything is predetermined in a way, that kind of goes against the idea of that God can just change something at any time. I guess you could have those two things happen at the same time.
But there you're
wait,
also...
no, that's not even wait. That's not even the problem. That's not the biggest objection. The biggest objection is not that God can change it, because most theologians don't believe that. Well, whatever. The biggest objection is that we can't change it. If we can't change it, are we morally responsible? Should we be punished for something we had no choice but to do?
Right.
And wipe us out of the picture. What about the devil? Like Satan. God created Satan. God did no evil, but he created
talking about
Satan
salvation, right?
Well, I'm just talking about like the
whole
presence
concept
of evil,
good and evil.
The whole concept, exactly. The whole concept of good and evil. Even like some people even go so far as to say, well, if determinism is true, then should we really be putting people in jail for doing what they were predetermined to do? They had no choice. Should we be punishing people for things that they had no choice but to do? Because, which I think is a really, I have my reasons for thinking is a really stupid argument, possibly the stupidest objection to determinism. But that's the biggest objection, and that's why Calvinism and maybe a couple other religions sort of stand against, and everyone's always talking crap about Calvinism, like, oh, you're just a Calvinist. Like it's almost an insult sometimes. A lot of people use it as an insult, unless you're a Calvinist, of course, in which case you're like, hey.
Thanks,
but
man.
Yeah.
So if I have this correct, Vincent, you sort of take it as you believe that determinism is the thing, the reality.
Yes, save for one plausible counter to it, but even then it's kind of
okay. But generally speaking, you would go with determinism. Loris, do you generally go with determinism?
No.
You don't? Okay.
Absolutely not. No.
Michael, how are you standing on determinism?
I'm very shaky. Like I don't want, like you said, it's very intuitive to think that we are in control of our own decisions. But I cannot find a good argument against determinism. So I would be very charitable to anybody who can come up with a really good argument against it, because I don't like it at all. It certainly goes against my intuitions. It goes against my theology. It goes against it. I mean, it doesn't go against it. It just doesn't sit nicely with it. It lacks some poetry. It's just, here's my thing. I can't see that God should know how all things would end is one thing, but that God should dictate how all things would end and then like go through the whole thing of like that he would know it, that he would know how free creatures would act is one thing, but that he would dictate how free creatures would act, it's like, why bother?
You're not really free then, are you?
Well, the concept of God is also, if I think if one were to believe in a concept of God, one would also have to believe in that concept existing in and out of time itself.
Yes, that's why he would know the end. That's why I'm fine with him knowing the end is one thing, but that he would...
Well, or he might know all possible routes.
That is also, yes. It's
I mean, I would say if you believe in or if God would exist, I think he would exist outside the deterministic spectrum.
Okay.
He isn't part of the deterministic universe.
Would he then have created it deterministically?
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
probably
When's the
it's.
last time you asked him?
I mean, I'm just saying. So the word God came up a lot in the last 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
I was not prepared for it. So
Sorry.
if we're gonna take
No.
God into this, I think for me, I would place him outside the deterministic
Mm.
universe because he is the creator. I think.
Yep.
So
Yes.
the way I think God is meant is he created the universe.
So we
That
we
would be a
kind of
whole. That would be a whole probably a whole podcast.
that's another
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
How did God do it?
No, and it's probably that's probably true in many ways. Like I totally agree that he would be outside of it, but at the same time, there are a lot of things about God that I feel like he is a necessary being, which means that he necessarily is certain things just by the. But yes, that's that. Like I said,
basic concept of it.
Don't get.
So
I
we
need to make a
Loris.
correction, like to my
Correct.
statement. It's not that I
Oh.
absolutely don't believe in determinism, but I have some gripes with it,
Mhm.
and yeah, I think determinism is extremely appealing, but I have some things that I think can't be possible.
Mhm.
Oh, cool! I'd be very interested to hear that.
Yeah, me too.
Like I
it
said, I'd
seems
be
to-
very charitable to any.
Yeah. It seems to me like we have you are sitting more towards the deterministic side. Michael, you are more towards the free will side.
No, I know I'm emotionally free will, but I cannot I don't know any good arguments against determinism.
Against,
Like
yep.
So
determinism
you're kind of
just
just like
needs to be okay.
rationally with determinism.
Here's the
Yeah.
thing. Here's the thing. Okay, when we because the alternative to determinism, I suppose, would be free will, right? That's kind of like that's the choice. Would I
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
fair in saying that
Those are the
that's the
opposites.
discussion? We're not discussing whether or not the Earth may change its orbit. That's not what we know. That's gonna pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know that where the
I
Earth
think
is
when
now
it
and where
comes
the Earth.
to physical objects, I think we can agree that that's deterministic.
Right. I know.
Yeah, I mean, if we say the universe isn't totally deterministic, there can still be deterministic aspects in it.
Yeah.
Right. So it comes to, are we determined? I think that's the big
Yes,
question.
yes.
Are we, or any other conscious, if there are other conscious creatures in the
Yep.
universe, does free will? That's basically the dichotomy.
Yeah.
Determinism, free
Although,
will.
if there is
But-
absolutely anything in the universe that isn't deterministic, then nothing, especially over an extended time, can truly be deterministic. Because there's always the trump card that could push you
Yes.
off of your fate.
We could always freely design a rocket that goes and knocks some rock out of orbit, and that rock that was completely deterministic will now change direction for no other reason than the fact that we decided to. However, if we are also predetermined to do so, then that's what would have happened from the from the very beginning of the universe. You would have an all-knowing entity would have been able to see that coming.
Yeah.
But what I see as the big question is, when we talk about free will, which is what we would be talking about when we're talking about determinism, is free of what? Like, are we asking about whether or not our bodies are free to act free from our nervous system, or if our nervous system is free to act from our brain? Or are we asking if our brain is free to act from the laws of physics? Are we asking if our brain is free to act from our mind or spirit, if you believe that that's where the freedom lies? If you believe that freedom lies in some mind or spirit, do you then, is that free to, is its nature free from the God who created it, and where is the free? Are we talking about freedom as random? Is that what we think freedom is? That something is random and completely? Because I mean, the biggest problem for me is that I can't even come up with a definition of what freedom would be. So if I can't even come up with what freedom would be, how can I argue that there's no determinism? That's
Mhm.
sort of where I'm at.
I mean, I would go simply with something like that my consciousness is free to decide.
Yeah, but where does your
Basically.
consciousness come from, and what created
That's
your conscious?
I don't know, but
Mm.
No, but
that's
even let's not rule out magic. Let's just like let it all in. Who's
Mhm.
doing the magic?
I don't know.
It could either be sort of like a pre-built in thing that all living beings have, or at least sentient
Conscious.
beings. Yeah. That they sort of have this spirit or soul within them that essentially, like Loris kind of said, that God is outside of the deterministic universe. This is also outside. So it's kind of like the car is deterministic, but the driver isn't, which is a weird mix because in the car isn't really.
I
So
mean, the
th-
car
yeah.
is determined by the input of the driver.
Yeah.
So
Right.
uh,
Did you
And
guys ever
the
see the
limitations of the car. The car
Yeah.
is determined by the limitations of the car. Like it
Mhm.
will only turn so far as the wheels will or can
Yeah.
turn it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's determined by the limitations of the car and the will of the driver.
Mhm.
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 Right. But
That's a
now,
good way to put it.
where's the driver come from?
What is
Okay,
the
I
driver?
mean,
but
the fact
but
that we can't answer that, to me, plays more into the cards of it's not deterministic for me
Mhm.
personally. So um, first of all, I don't think I'm gonna change anyone's opinion in that podcast. I already know that, because to me, um, uh, the only argument against determinism is consciousness. Because I think consciousness could not exist in a deterministic universe.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
if we take something physical, as Vince said, an arrow, we
Mhm.
can physically calculate that, like the law of
Motion.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Michael said that.
Yeah.
yes. So you can apply all of that to physical objects, but as soon as consciousness comes into play, you can't do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. I do have an additional sort of argument to determinism, even though I think that determinism is the way things work. So, yeah, there's the idea that there's something that doesn't operate within deterministic laws at the steering wheel, which is a consciousness or a soul, or this is something that the science community has kind of discovered since they were able to analyze electrons, and they can't predict where an electron will be because as soon as they look at it, um, it's not there anymore.
Mhm.
Kind of like the Schrodinger's cat thing.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah.
It's
Okay, I
like
know what you're. Okay.
it's not quite like that. Yeah, maybe you can explain it better. But essentially, it's hard to predict where an electron will be, and apparently it can even be in multiple places at once, just by because I guess they use probabilities to determine where it is.
Okay.
And so sort of based on that, down to that level of an electron,
Okay.
it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like things operate on a deterministic level. It's
Yeah.
there's some randomness in there.
All right. You're talking about quantum indeterminism. Is that
Yeah,
what it's called? And yeah.
sounds right.
Because yes, which is basically down on the electron, photon level and subatomic particles. And it's the opposite of what you said. It's but I get what you're saying. It's not that the electron exists until they look at it and it's not there. It's the other way around. It's only when they look at it is it exactly in a location. Until they look at it, it doesn't actually exist. Until they look at it, what exists is a cloud of probability of where it will be when you look at it. So it lives in a subatomic, the subatomic particles, they exist. It's not like when you're looking for someone and you're like, where is he probably, or where is that ball probably going to be? And it could be anywhere until you, no, it's not that. It actually exists as probability until until it's known, until there's some sort of what they call the observer effect, right? Okay, now here's the thing. There's what they call microtubules inside the cells, the cells in our brain, the
neurons.
what are they called? Yes. Yeah. Anyway, the microtubules are like the structure holding the cells together, and those things are theorized for now. There's the going theory is that there's a lot of that there is quantum activity going on there. They used to think that the brain could not have quantum activity in it because it was too warm and too wet. I don't know what that has to do with. I'm not a quantum physicist. I don't know why that's a problem, but apparently that's a problem. That is warm and wet is a problem for quantum
It's the
activity.
best argument I've ever heard against determinism. It's warm and wet, so it can't be in your head.
Yep. Yeah. But they found out that there is actually quantum activity happening in the brain, and some people are actually making serious correlations, and you could look into that separately, between consciousness and what you're talking about, the universal wave function, the Schrodinger's
Cat.
No, the universal wave function is Schrodinger came up with this equation that predicts the probability of something happening, and it honestly, I'm really bad at math. I mean, I'm okay with numbers, but when you start having all these like Greek letters and squiggles and like little pitchforks and stuff like that, I'm like, no, I'm out. And you have people on YouTube videos explaining to you, and you're like, okay, they'll tell you that this equation means this, and I'm just going to take their word for it.
You're just like, okay, fine.
In a very taking their word for it kind of way. It's intellectually humiliating, but what are you going to do? We all have our limits. But yes, quantum indeterminacy is held up as one of the big hope for free will. Like that's where it's happening. That's where the freedom is happening. But then yes, I have objections to that too, unfortunately, because I wish I could just kind of we're free. Quantum determinism. Microtubules. Yay. But yeah.
I'm curious. Has anyone watched or listened to Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson talking about this stuff? They did so a few years ago.
I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about it, but not with Sam Harris.
Sam Harris?
No.
Yeah, they had. I think they had two quiet, long discussions on consciousness itself. And inside of that, they touched on free will, and Sam Harris is very deterministic. 100%.
Yeah, that would not surprise me one bit.
Yeah, and I'm probably gonna not get this 100% correct, but Jordan Peterson's take on determinism and free will is, to me, it was unique, and it made a whole lot of sense.
Need to watch that.
Well, too bad you don't remember what it was.
Well, I can paraphrase an example he gave, which stuck in my head. And it's in summary, what he's saying is that it's both. It's both determinism and free will, that we have both, that we exist in a reality where we are existing, which has both of these elements. And I thought, well, that would make sense with the amount of discussion and confusion over these two things. The fact that both are both are existing side by side.
But
Um,
how that's sort of like,
so
A is
yeah,
A and not A, like
yeah.
how
So the way he explained it, or the analogy, one of the analogies he gave was, it had to do with time. So time is the thing that we are all transported through, in a way.
right. Mhm.
And he gave this analogy of driving down a road, and he said, when you're driving, you don't look directly in, like, right in front of the car, right in front of the vehicle. You look down the road, and what's happening is that you're looking ahead of you to get an idea of what are the things that you're going to have to perhaps turn for, slow down for, speed up for, all these kind of things. And as the things come closer to you, so as that point comes closer to you, the closer it gets to you, the more determined things are.
The less
Because
choice you have.
exactly, you've basically, he used another example where he, what's it called, a ballistic movement, he called it. He said that's what it was called, a ballistic movement. And that is where you first decide to do something in your mind, and then you do it. And by the time that you're doing it, it's determined. It's at that point, it's deterministic. And
So he's saying basically, the more time we have to think about something, the bigger a hole there, a bigger a door there is for free will. So basically, if something,
that's
if a kid jumps out in front of your car with, chasing a ball, you're very limited as to how you react, and we'll
Yep.
find out whether you're the kind of person who just doesn't give a fuck about kids. Yeah, just right. Or if you swerve to your own
injury.
hurt,
Yeah.
and drive into a tree, and we'll
Yeah.
know that, well, you were fundamentally determined to be an altruistic kind of creature.
And dead.
Uh, and
There's a
dead,
lesson to
yeah.
be learned here.
Yeah, I
But
have
yeah,
to
that
say
was
though, like it does make sense what you described, and I think actually this whole topic, it's a lot of semantics, and I think I agree with Jordan Peterson. However, it's like it seems to me like he doesn't have the guts to say determinism is wrong, because what he describes isn't
Mhm.
determinism. Like as soon as there's both, the whole universe isn't deterministic.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, what he's describing there is literally like, we know that physics exists, and he's saying that physics is deterministic. But that's not what the discussion is about when we're talking about determinism. It's largely around free will, and I guess if what I said earlier, if deities can pick something up, so then the physics of that thing isn't determined. Um, but largely it's the free will thing. So if he's saying we don't have free will, then he's not arguing on the case of determinism at all. So yeah.
I think the last sentence
Wait, what?
Threw me
didn't
off.
make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
If
yeah,
he's
but-
arguing that we do not have free will, then
Oh,
no,
sorry, I meant that we do have free
we
will.
do. Okay.
Yes, yes.
We're
Okay,
back
yeah.
on.
Double negatives.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be like Laura says, that he just doesn't have the cojones to to just come out and say it. Or it could be that we are stuck in a box that we put ourselves into, that we have sort of created this dichotomy, and now someone else is coming around and saying, well, maybe this is how reality works, and we say, yeah, no, that doesn't fit our dichotomy, therefore you don't have the balls.
Okay, so I think um, I'm not sure actually what the definition really is, but is determinism a concept that you can apply to different things? If yes, what Jordan Peterson does is saying we can apply that concept to certain things and certain events, which I agree, but not to everything, which then
Mm-hmm.
means that that like we don't live in a deterministic reality. However, still there are things that we can apply determinism to.
I think that's. I mean, I think we all agree that things
Yeah.
which do not have a consciousness,
Yes. Yes.
um, determinism applies there. But to things with a consciousness, it seems like free will is an almost like a bonus pack, or like, if you're playing video games and you get an upgrade,
Uh-huh.
it's almost like
It's a superpower. Yeah.
it's like
I
a
think,
superpower.
yeah, if
So,
we
do you guys think that consciousness inherently means that you have free will? So, do conscious beings automatically have free will or not?
It's hard to say because I don't know. I'm not 100% clear on what consciousness is.
and it's
So
as
does
someone who really thinks that determinism is the way things work, it's also very difficult for me to describe what exactly free will is, because I don't actually think that free will exists.
yeah, but
So I
you're
don't.
already starting with that presupposition. So you gotta back off. You gotta
Well, I think
zoom
everyone
out.
is born with the assumption that free will exists because
Yeah.
that's what
But
being a
what I
human
would
feels
like
like.
is for people to be able to say what they think free will is before even saying that they think it exists. Like, or even before having a strong position that it doesn't exist. Like, what is it you're saying doesn't exist? Because, um, yeah, like, are what what it sounds like, what I'm getting so far is that Loris is saying that consciousness is free. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not sure if it is. That's why I
No, but
asked the question. So
let's just say let's go with it. I mean, I'm not holding you down to your position. I'm just saying let's go with this suggestion. So
yes, yes,
what you're
let's
saying
do
is
that.
consciousness is uh, free from a deterministic system, right? So,
Yes.
but what are you saying, that it's produced randomly? Because clear, I mean,
Mm, yeah. No, I don't think so. I just think that
How can something have a will and be random?
well, that's
yeah,
how we think about a
that's
will
a good way to put it. Yes.
I don't see will and random uh, working
as
very well
being the same.
together.
No.
No.
Well, freedom from determinism
That's a good one.
must be random,
Hmm.
right? So if you're saying that will is free from determinism, then you're sort of saying that it's based on some sort of random process, and it might be. But the problem with random processes is that when you have so many millions of them, as we do have neurons in our brain, say each of them is literally acting on random. Random has an app. Like, for example, if you throw a die, you have a 1 in 6 chance of getting, say, a 6. But if you throw it 600 times, you'll probably get 100 of each with a margin of error of around like maybe 10. Right? If you
Yeah.
throw it a billion times, you'll get 6 billion times, you'll probably get 6 billion of each with a margin of about 10. If you throw the die 6 trillion times, you'll probably get 1 trillion of each with the margin of error of about 10. So the more, like, if we're talking about like neurons in the brain, the more if you have trillions of these things, even the fact that it's random comes out to what will be described by the Schrodinger equation, basically. So it almost, that little doorway to indeterminate freedom almost gets squashed by probability. So it's
I really
Okay, so
like the way you put that. Yeah.
yeah, I thought about like the random aspect, and I think some degree of randomness occurs. If it occurs, then it's occurring if you're born, basically. So the creation or the manifestation of consciousness, there has to be something random there, because people are different, right? They aren't entirely determined by what happens to them. Their personality, I think, doesn't entirely form because of things that happen to them, how they're treated by their parents, etc., etc. I think there is something that is there that's unique, and it
Are
it plays an actor if in their life, as far as how they make decisions,
mhm.
and that's sort of like a driving force. If you want, like, a force in that deterministic universe, which makes it then not deterministic, but like to me,
The question.
having a very hard time to
Can I
articulate
just ask a
but
question that might help clear it up? Are you referring to nurture and nature? Whether you have nurture, which is the way
yeah,
your parents treated you, maybe the food you were given, all those things, and then there's
yes,
nature, which is your DNA, the way you're structured, possibly the way your endocrine system works and the hormones that are released into your brain. Like maybe some people, they're just chemically predisposed to responding a certain way to exactly the same circumstance. Somebody might get really angry if they're treated, like, say, for example, you have two kids, they're both treated the same by their parents, but one of
yes,
them is chemically predisposed to just taking it in and growing. The other one has a breakdown and just
yes,
creates, gets scarred and damaged. So
yes. And
that's the
if we
nature,
yes,
and as
to
opposed to the
me,
nurture. Yeah, go ahead.
exactly, to me, if you take um two parents and they have multiple childs, like, if we live in a purely deterministic world, wouldn't those childs
All come
almost,
out the same.
yes, because there is some randomness that forms different personalities, or not?
Although that could be based off of the physical differences in their brains. If you're going with that
Yeah,
consciousness is
it
purely a
could, yes.
physical thing.
Well, okay, but let's.
I'd like to read out a couple comments here that we have. So Elizabeth said, "Do to others as you would do unto you." I believe that's a Bible quote. Free will is taking responsibility for your own choices and how it affects others. So I think that you can do that even if you believe in determinism. So I don't think that taking responsibility is the differentiator between determinism and free will.
Right, because you are or you aren't determined to be the kind of person who will or will not take responsibility. Is
Right.
what
Even though I
determinism
kind
would
of get
say.
it, because if you do have full free will, then taking responsibility for your actions is more appropriate.
Yes.
And you
Well,
can be blamed if you
wait,
don't.
well, I kind of my problem, as what I was talking about earlier about, yes, the moral implications of determinism, that, oh well, if we're predetermined, then we don't have to take moral responsibility. What I find just in the last couple hours, when I was told, oh, you're going to be on this podcast, I was like, well, I better think this through so I have something to say. And I think that, and I'm sorry that most of my reflections tend to come from a theological sort of perspective, and I tend to think about determinism in a theological way, like, what does this imply to? That's just the way I look at the universe. Sorry.
It's fine.
But I feel like free will is and punishment is punishment more significantly is a useful lie. Like the way we tell our kids, if you do this bad thing, the boogeyman's gonna get you, right? The boogeyman isn't like, if you cross the road without mommy and daddy, then there's gonna be a boogeyman on the other side who's gonna, and it's a useful lie because it means they won't cross the road. And it's like, well, maybe that lie is not good for them, but it's a heck of a lot better than them getting hit by a truck.
Mm.
So the concept of free will, the concept of punishment, and I'm not talking about even social punishment, jail and stuff like that. I'm talking about like the thought that we'll be punished either by karma or in the next life or something. That God is angry. This whole concept of God being angry and punishing, it's a lie. It's a useful lie because it makes us be good, because otherwise God will be angry. But I think that somebody who kind of has a more mature way of looking at it will realize, whoa, I need to act in a certain way.
Yeah.
I've never
I
told my
actually
kids that,
agree,
by the way.
but
No, but we do other
You
things.
were
We
the
do other things.
boogeyman.
No,
I'm the
no,
boogeyman.
Exactly. Well, I didn't want to go there, but
Baba
like for
Yaga.
example, a spanking. If you go across the street, I'm gonna give you a spanking, which is kind of
Yeah.
frowned upon these days. But I mean, being hit by by a hand on your butt is better than being hit by a truck. And I don't this is gonna
I just tell them, enjoy being roadkill.
yeah. If that's what's predetermined, then
Yeah.
It's your fate. Just get on with it.
yeah.
No, I do. I think it's interesting that you brought up the punishment factor of free will and determinism, because I too looked into determinism a bit today, just because until now I know I'm a bad person. Until now, all I've actually
You thought it was
really...
your idea.
It was.
thought-
It was his idea.
Determinism?
Yeah, I haven't done a PhD in determinism.
You did it today.
Yeah, exactly. No, I just wanted to see like if the ideas that I've spoken to people about when we're discussing determinism was sort of like what the discussion was even about. Like, so that I know that, okay, this is the spectrum of the things that people are talking about. And it actually was, so that's fine. But whilst looking through like a few YouTube videos of philosophers and what they called big thinkers talking about it, they brought up sort of the issue with punishment. And apparently they've done studies to sort of see how people act when they think that they're operating deterministically or out of free will. And people that think that they operate deterministically are more likely to be immoral.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that
Because
doesn't
it's an
prove or
excuse, 'cause we all-
disprove it. It's just it could
Exactly.
No, but it does mean that the idea of everyone believing that they have free will is probably better for society.
Sure.
I would say there are reasons why it's also worse. We can get into that with the entire justice system. Who's game?
No,
I mean-
but here, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to say maybe we need to distinguish taking responsibility and punishment, because I think punishment is part of the whole deterministic process,
Absolutely.
as you said, right? The existence of a potential punishment reduces the
Your
possibility of
it
the
is
act
part of the
occurring.
factors. It's part of the
Yes,
factors
yes.
that factor in on what you will wind up doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly my objection to, like, well, if we're predetermined, then let's remove the justice system. It's not fair to like, no, that's not why we punish.
No.
And these people who think that probably have this concept of punishment that it's all about getting even. Like, you did this bad thing, now you're going to now society's going to get even with you by making you go to jail. That's not what it's for. It's there so that anybody who's thinking about doing a crime will really think twice, because and this is just another factor, along with their upbringing and their chemical predisposition and all that stuff. The fact that there's jail and getting sodomized in the showers, all that stuff, that all factors in to why I'm not going to rob that bank. So if we just let people off the hook, oh, sorry, you were predetermined to go rob the bank anyway, so you don't need to go to jail, well, then everyone will be robbing banks in no time at all. And so that's...
Historically, the usage of jail has simply been a punishment, right? It's pretty much just ever been punishment. And I
Yeah, but
guess
define
there's the added
punishment.
bonus that you separate that person from people that they could harm.
I think it used to be, if we're talking historically, I think it used to be more like, we're gonna hold you in this place until you get your punishment. And now and as time went on, it just became like, oh, we're gonna keep you now for months
We
and
can't
then
torture you
years
anymore,
and
so
for your entire life. You know.
yeah, I guess that makes sense. And I mean, jail is a pretty logical thing to have. I mean, it's deterrent because no one wants to be in jail.
Yeah, but a better deterrent would just be like, if you steal someone's shit, you get your hand chopped off.
Yeah, but we can't do that anymore, can we? I think it still happens in some countries, but um,
third time.
but then there was also sort of this, I guess, modern idea of that jail was meant to rehabilitate you.
Well, that's a good use of jail time. That's a good
I
use
think
of
it's a
jail
great
time.
use of jail time.
Yeah,
but
get a Bible.
I think, by and large, it's just not effective at doing
Get
that
some
at all.
religion in ya.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I don't think that jail, like even in developed countries, is effective at rehabilitating people to not do crime.
Okay, but this is way off determinism.
Well,
Well,
no, not
wait.
really.
yeah, no, not really, because it takes us back to like the nature of man. Like some people go to jail and they like, you know what, I'm going to spend this time, I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to get back out and I'm going to do something. Other people, they just sort of gravitate to the scum, and they come out more scummy than they went in, and that has a lot to do with their predisposition or their
Right.
consciousness, depending on what you think.
So that kind of ties into I think the justice system law is largely sort of based on the concept that everyone has, to a degree, free will.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because
Again,
you get
like I
punished
said,
for doing
useful
something
lie.
wrong.
It's a useful lie, but if you want to be more technical about it and like be
Mhm.
more, let's say mature and adulty about it, we can say it's a deterrent. And a deterrent
Right.
is a
Yes.
factor in a choice.
Absolutely.
Right. So it would still make sense in a deterministic universe. But
Yes.
there are reasons
Yeah.
why I think that it's not purely based in determinism.
I would say it's almost unethical or immoral. If
What?
if the fact of the matter is that everything one does is just, yeah, it's predestined.
Mhm.
Someone goes and does some bad shit. I mean, why do we call it bad shit? It's just someone doing something.
Well, it's the definition we give to bad shit. I mean, bad shit is an act that causes potentially
Suffering.
me suffering. Like I see you doing an action, and I think, whoa, if I was the subject of his action, I would not be so happy. So I'm gonna say that that's bad shit, and you probably would agree with me. Like sitting on the couch talking about it, you'd agree. Yeah, if someone did that, that would be not nice. So we
I
agree
would
that's bad
say
shit.
I would say I would not want that to happen to me, for example.
Exactly. Mhm.
But I would not say that the person should be punished for it, or that
No.
it's evil, or anything like that. It's just that happened.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think it's part of the reason why I just I really don't want to believe in determinism, even if it's like
Real.
it's so real and logical and tangible. But you're right. Maybe the action that like someone does, it's bad. How and like we punish them, for example, because of the deterrent and stuff. It's still immoral if you
Mhm.
believe in determinism. It's just not. It's
Well, it
not
feels
right.
like a lot of the motivation behind it is the getting even part. It's like you deserve to have this done to you, and it's justice to have it done to you. If it's purely a deterrent, it just serves the function of stopping people from doing it, and so you kind of serve as an example to the rest of everyone, saying,
Yeah.
just to remember, if you do it, this will happen. But there shouldn't be any moral high ground now that this person has had justice served to them.
Well, hang on a sec. There's also another deterrent that we're not thinking about, but it's really just a deterrent, is empathy. Empathy is also a deterrent. I'm not going to punch you in the face because I don't want to be punched in the face. And I'm thinking, ouch, that pain that I would feel if I were punched in the face is what would happen, is what would be the consequence of my punching him in the face. Just like going to jail may be the consequence of my robbing a bank, causing someone pain or loss, because I killed them or their kid or something like that. Like that is that just the empathy, the weight, the pain of the empathy. I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
making
but
sense.
But
if you
in a
want to,
deterministic reality, you don't have a choice.
Right.
yeah,
That's the
No, I
point.
do have it. No, but um, you do have factors that play into each decision. You don't have a okay factor. For example, just take a ball, right? It's flying along in a universe. It's just a rock. It's just flying along, and you could say, what direction is it going to be flying? Well, it exploded from some collision, and it's flying in this thing. And you say, well, then it's determined to fly in that direction.
Mhm.
Well, what if it comes into the gravitational field of a large star and that turns it? Well, that is another factor. It's still predetermined, but it's another factor. And then what if it hits into another little pebble that's 1/3 of its size? Then sorry, 1/3 of its mass. Then it is offset by 1/3 of its direction or
Velocity or
speed,
something.
velocity exactly. And while that change, that is, it's just while it's still predetermined, it's a factor that plays into. So I'm
yes, but
saying that
the
deterrent. Sorry.
formation of the factor is also dependent of other stuff. So you having the necessary empathy to not rob someone, for
Yeah.
example, is just predetermined by your upbringing, your DNA, whatever, all those factors. And so
And maybe you've been
it's
robbed yourself.
yeah. So maybe so it's still immoral to judge someone on their empathy because they didn't choose to be that
Empathetic.
empathetic or not.
Hmm.
You don't really choose to be empathetic. It's just kind
That's
of
part of
built
human
in, and
nature.
it's also
Yeah.
a lot of, in fact, it may be one of the major factors of when people say you're a bad person or you're a good person. It's like if
I
you have
mean,
no
empathy
empathy.
can be formed or thrive or nurtured, as you would say,
Sure,
Mhm.
by
a
other
lot of people have it
people,
trained
for
out of
example.
them.
I think there's
I mean,
as someone who's been told by several people in my life that I am lacking empathy. I
Cold soul, this one.
yes, that
I
I can say that I've definitely made, well, I think I've made choices to increase my levels of empathy. So
Was that choice out of free will? We are going to answer that after the break. All right.
taking a 5-minute break and then we'll be back.
5 to 10 minutes.
awesome.
All right. See you guys in a bit.
Yes, see you.
All right.
All right.
Okay, here we are again. Guys, have a good break. Did you have
Yeah.
a break?
Yes.
Yep.
What was the question you asked just before we went to break?
Um, I didn't really ask a question. I made a
Okay.
statement.
Yeah, what
Although,
was it? Because I remember having an objection to it.
I
I
don't
don't remember what it was though.
Well, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's everyone's problem with free will?
I don't think it exists.
Yeah,
I think,
but I mean, what's your
My-
with the notion of free will? What's actually your problem with it?
I don't have one.
my
I-
my problem of it is that I don't know what it's free of.
Okay.
Like, is it like I was saying earlier? Is it my body that's free of my brain? Is it my brain that's free of my spirit? Is it my spirit that's free of whatever created it? Like, where, like, if my spirit was made by magic, is it free? Was the magic random? Was the magic that made my magical spirit also, like, where is random the answer? Is
So
there
can free will exist without? It sounds to me like you're asking um a question of the will. So you're starting with trying to define what the will is. And without knowing what the will is, you can't say, well, free. What?
the will, my will is limited to something more fundamental than my will. For example, if you're driving down the road and you have a fork in the road, right? You can say I can pick left or right, but there's something, you're driven by something. Like, for example, you're going to Rome, and so you're going to pick the road that leads to Rome, and so you're driven by this will to go to Rome.
Mhm.
And that is why you're going to pick that road freely. Although you didn't, is it really free? Because you didn't get to choose which road leads to Rome. One of those roads will lead to Rome.
Mhm.
You freely want to go to Rome. You are determined to take the road. You are predetermined to take the road that leads to Rome. I don't know. And then
But
who decided?
Mhm.
Who decided you need to go to Rome?
Right.
Why do you need to go to Rome?
Well, that's the thing. That's that's part of your will. And I think under your questions, I'm sort of hearing you ask the question, what is will itself?
No, what dictates what your will is? Where does your will come from? What's it made of?
Yeah,
Is
but
it randomly generated, or is there something that makes you will what you will?
what is will itself?
A desire, a set of desires, and a strategy, an optimal strategy for attaining those desires. Like my will to not hurt myself
Right.
will
But
express
could
itself.
will exist without a consciousness?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay,
No.
so then we're almost if we backtrack even further, we're talking about will. Well, we're talking about free will.
Mm-hmm.
We say before talking about the thing that is free, we have to define the thing to know what it's what it might be free from.
Absolutely.
And
That is my
the
problem with
will,
free will.
and then the will is, well, what is the will? And that is tied, it seems, to consciousness, to the idea of consciousness. And then we are at the point of asking, what the fuck is consciousness?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to bring that up because, as I said before the break, to me consciousness contradicts determinism.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think we need to try to define consciousness.
I think so too.
And in my definition
Mhm.
lies the reason why I don't think consciousness can exist in a deterministic universe, because I think consciousness, first of all, consciousness is something that you can't observe, because consciousness is the thing that's observing. So
Interesting.
I don't think you can even define or describe consciousness, because every time you describe it, you you aren't describing it fully because you are the thing that's describing currently, and I don't think that's
So is it
possible.
like trying to describe yourself?
Yes.
Well, I think
So
you can observe it to a point, right? So, like in medical tests, you can analyze someone's brain activity, so the electrical signals that are going around, and based on that, you can not
yes,
only
but
observe sort of what's going on in their head and what their thought patterns are very badly,
that's not
but
their consciousness, right?
That could be cause and effect. Like their consciousness could be the thing that's making those things do what they're doing.
If the
or that is their consciousness.
That's the
Well,
question. There is
there you have a real problem, because then you bring brain surgery into it. I mean,
Mhm.
not brain surgery, but brain. What do you call it? Oh, God.
transplant.
No. Brain neuroscience. Sorry, you bring
Oh.
neuroscience into it, and neuroscientists are, even though some may not admit it, they're just in the dark about what consciousness is, as everyone else is. But I think you can describe consciousness. I like aboutness, the word aboutness or intentionality. I think that describes consciousness kind of nicely. It's when we're about something. Like, I'm thinking about this topic right now. I've been my vision is just a response of photons, but the fact that I'm not just seeing, not just looking, but I am also seeing, is that
Mhm.
I have an about, like, I look at the screen and I know what it's about. It's about these
Mm.
people that I'm talking to, and aboutness, I think, is a useful way of thinking about consciousness. About consciousness.
Intention is also an interesting word.
Intentionality, yes, because you're direct and directed intentionality. You're gonna, like,
Yeah.
nothing physical things are not about anything.
Mhm.
Like even a book, a big stack of paper with ink is not about anything. It has symbols that
Interesting.
when we look at the symbols, they make us think about something, and it takes clearly the author had some aboutness when he put down these symbols. But if you're reading a book in Chinese, it has no aboutness. It's not.
To
It's
you,
just
yeah.
to you, right? Because you don't
Yeah.
understand the symbols. So the symbols in themselves have no aboutness. We have aboutness. Only living beings have about.
So do all how would you say this? Do all biological creatures have?
Sentient. Do
Yes.
all
Well,
sentient beings have aboutness? I don't believe so, but that's
No.
really, really up to debate.
or
I think if you're
what
trying
is
to describe consciousness,
what is classified as sentient exactly?
Well, you have senses. I mean, that's how I.
Oh,
Like
so
a
like
cow.
I think something that can think about something. Like
I
you pretty
think
much
you
need a brain
yes,
to do that.
yes, you do.
Well,
okay,
this is
so a
all very.
cell is not a cell is not sentient?
No,
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't
Alright.
think insects are sentient either.
Where would you draw that line?
I saw a
mean,
very cool
have you
grasshopper.
dropped you drop an amoeba, into acid and it squirms just like you would.
Yeah, but I don't think. Okay, well, maybe it would be helpful to look up a definition, but I think like a useful describer of it would be something that's capable of learning something.
My phone is
Ooh,
capable of learning
viruses
something.
can learn shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's predetermined
phone
in their
can
DNA.
My book, if I open it too
An
many times
existing
to the
virus
same
can't
page.
learn something.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
But we can see sentience.
I'm pretty sure the definition is that you have receptors, nervous receptors, and a brain that can interpret the signals that.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what
That's
Oh.
what I was saying. Yeah, senses.
Able to
that you have-
perceive or feel things.
Yes.
perception. Yeah.
Perception, yeah, but that's also kind of vague because I guess
Yeah,
insects
that gets
can
muddy.
perceive
It gets
things.
muddy.
Well,
It gets
go
muddy.
back.
It gets muddy right about there.
What do you
You had
mean?
a better just go back. You had a better
Wikipedia.
capacity to experience feelings and sensations.
So feelings.
Mhm.
That's a good one as well. Even
Emotion.
though
No, that's too murky.
it's a bit murky.
Well,
honestly,
feelings
all of
like
these-
emotions. What can feel emotions that
No, but
is not
even
conscious?
even feelings like pain, even a feeling like pain,
Yeah.
like what quality are we giving it? Like, clearly a cow feels pain, You know, a species would go out of existence. It would get extinct very quickly if it didn't have some sort of reactive system that repelled or somehow was disenchanted by pain, right? So
So
obviously they all go on.
my take on this is we're right now witnessing that we can't describe consciousness because we just can't judge if something is sentient or not,
Right.
basically. Because for example, we can observe a cow, how it reacts to pain. So we can conclude that it probably has consciousness, but it
Sentient.
could also be just a reaction that's physically occurring, like a reflex or something.
Yes.
So
But cows also have personalities.
yeah, so I'm not
I know
debating that
this.
cows have
It's true, Michael. You're like
No.
shaking. What do those Frenchies do with all the
No.
cows there? Swiss
Well, no.
cows have personality.
And
Everyone
cows
in
can
Switzerland
learn
knows
from pain.
this.
Swiss chocolate has personality.
It's true too. Our chocolate is sentient.
I would like to describe why I even started thinking about this, because I think it leads to an important question why, to me, even talking about this is not pointless.
Okay.
Okay, so originally I came into the whole thought process of determinism because growing up I was taught morals. I was taught, like, out of your own free will you have the decision to do the right thing. And then in the recent few years, a few years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And ADHD means that I physically can't do things like other people. And that got me thinking, like, okay, so even though I really want to do this thing, I can't do it. And that's just like the physical barrier there. That's not my will or my free will saying that. That's just physics. And then I think about, okay, well, there's some people that have a different mental disability. Someone who it maybe is autistic, or someone who has schizophrenia, someone whose mind doesn't work on the same way that most people's do. And these things are generally taken into account in law, right? So there is actually a caveat in law there that says, well, you have to have a certain level of what we can define as intelligence or as free will in order for you to actually get the full brunt of the law. Like, if someone is legally insane, they're not, for example, given the death penalty, like, ever. And so I think, okay, so the law there has actually made provision for when people don't have full free will. But where do you actually draw that line? Because that means that they couldn't control their actions, so they wouldn't be fully responsible for them, at least not in the eyes of the law. Maybe personally they should be. But no one can actually really change, at the end of the day, what they're going to do. Or can they? That's the whole debate here. But I think that the way that law looks at morals and what people should and shouldn't do is kind of flawed there, because I think we can agree that, for example, an autistic person shouldn't be judged to the same level as a fully, like, neurally normal person. But if there's someone that has, for example, like, no perception of the emotion of empathy, should they be judged as on the same level as a person? Or someone who's predisposed to high levels of aggression? Like, they couldn't do anything about that just as much as I can't not have ADHD. So where do you actually draw the line of how much you're responsible for?
I mean, I think it's a very interesting topic. I don't see really how I can imagine tying that into determinism versus free will, but I don't really see any of that speaking to determinism.
Well, essentially, everything is based off of your free will, at least from our standpoint. Like there is utility even if everything is deterministic, like Michael said, because it is, well, deterring. But the way that people are punished seems to be based on that they have free will. They could have done
And
something else.
we could just like play with it. Imagine that
Mm.
that our brains were like 10 times as efficient as they are, and we
Mm.
actually had the physical, we actually had the mental capacity to be perfect. Shouldn't wouldn't that we would draw a new line, we would make a new norm,
Mm.
and then people like us, like basically you now, should you be held responsible for the little mistakes you make?
Mm.
If everybody else in the world could be perfect and being perfect was the normal, shouldn't it be kind of disgusting that you make mistakes?
That's the
And
thing. The
how
way that a lot of people are looked at when they, for example, something terrible to happens to someone, and if you don't feel sad for them, you're looked down as a bad person. They're like, how could you? When you like physically can't. It's like, sorry, maybe I am a bad person, but it's not my fault.
well, there's another mechanism to take into account, is that what we want to do, or what evolution wants to do, is weed people like that out. We want basically the women to not want to mate with men who will pass on these non-empathetic genes, because what we want is a species that is prone to empathy, right? and as we get that, okay, but actually, okay, here's the thing. That's what we were talking about just before the break, where he was talking about his experiences that made no decisions to make himself more empathetic. And I was thinking, well, decisions don't really make you, you have to be empathetic before you make the decision. And for me, the only thing that can really make you more empathetic, because I think I'm not naturally an empath, I think is the word, but experience makes you empathetic, because that's all we have to go on, right? All we have to go on is our own experience. That's all we have to extrapolate from. If we want to say, ouch, that must really hurt that poor person, you have to have felt pain yourself. If you've never felt pain, you cannot empathize. So I think that going through life and having heartbreak and disappointment and blah 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 blah, having children or having people that you love and seeing them go through things, and that kind of, it can extend your, like, you watch TV and you see people in, some war-torn country, and you're like, suddenly it hurts so much more because you've been through something like it. You have something you can extrapolate from. Prior to having that experience, how can you be even expected to empathize? Like, you don't know what it means and you have no point of reference.
Yeah, but that's where it's exactly in that kind of situation where I don't have any direct, like, personal comparative experience in my own life to be able to feel empathy for someone
Because
having,
you've
I don't
never
know.
felt pain.
No, but what I mean, like, if someone's wife or husband has died,
Right.
I didn't go through that myself, so I can't, like, I can't say, oh, I know exactly how you're feeling. But there have been times in my life where I have made a conscious effort to not just cognitively pass by. I've made
Okay.
a conscious effort to say, okay, wait, I I check myself. That was the initial reaction that I had psychologically, and I chose, as far as I know, to pay more attention, to think about it a bit more, and then the empathy kind of comes to me.
Right.
So
Well, what you had to do was grab the first thing you do know. Maybe you have a wife. She hasn't died,
right,
but so you don't know what it's like for her to die, but you have a wife at least, and then, okay, I have that in common. Now let me imagine that she died, and
correct,
then maybe you can begin to
yeah,
think, "Ow, fuck, that would hurt,"
yeah,
and then you can move on. But like I said, you have to extrapolate. You have to, like, go from
right.
what you have to start with what you have. If you didn't have a wife, you'd have to find something else. Okay, well, I have, a stamp collection. What would I do if that got burned? You have to go with what you have. If you don't have anything, how can you how can you?
comparing women with
all
stamp
the
collections.
women
No,
right
no,
now are like,
that's
what?
I'm not.
We're just
On
a
the next
stamp
episode.
collection
I'm not
to you?
comparing them.
I'm
I'm not
joking.
comparing them. I'm saying if you don't have
Well
that,
done,
you have to-
Michael.
Now
it
you're
was not a-
cancelled. First podcast. Damn.
No. This was not a comparison.
I
was
know.
saying that if you don't have it, you have to go with the next. Like, for me, what makes me sad? Oh,
Yeah.
if the only thing I have that makes me sad, and you have to go from that to begin to extrapolate what this other person
Mhm.
must be feeling.
Yeah.
And the further you have to extrapolate, the harder it is to really empathize, because it's just you're just sort of guessing, right? You're just guessing.
Coming back to your examples of how you got to this topic, I'm still trying to find myself at the doorstep of determinism. With what you were thinking about, what you are describing seems to me to be physiological impediments, let's say, to normal life, normal societal existence.
No, it's true. You don't actually need to go into the topic of determinism when talking about that.
Yeah.
So
how did you get
kind
there?
of it's neighbors with determinism, because in both cases you're talking about how relevant is free will.
But the line there to me seems pretty clear. It seems to be along the line of, again, these physiological impediments. If the specimen has been diagnosed with a impediment like this, that seems to be the line that's drawn.
Yeah, but my point was that line is drawn arbitrarily. That was my example of talking about, like, say we had perfect minds, we would be drawing that line up at perfection. What we're talking about is just the norm. The line is drawn at the norm, and the norm just happens to be where we are in our evolutionary state right now. Say we were earlier in our evolutionary state, say we were Bronze Age men, or say we were, I don't know if you want to say we were Neanderthals, or whatever, at whatever point we are, that's where we would draw the line. And then say we were all autistic. Would that be the new line? And then who would be under that line?
Where empathy didn't exist. No, the reason why I think it is really relevant there is precisely because of this. Because, yeah, right now the lines are drawn where people can be clinically diagnosed. But the fact that people can be clinically diagnosed and you can point to a certain brain condition and say, we'll make provision for this, because the person does not have the ability to do certain things with their brain. I think that there are things that can't be diagnosed or aren't being diagnosed that fulfill the exact same criteria. Someone can't do this with their brain.
The rules and laws are made for the average normal person. So the person who is not up to that being average, I was saying, the law, our society is made for the average person. Just by definition, we take the average person, and that's what we model society after. If you're below or above average, we can't hold you by the same standards, right?
Yeah. Except for when we do make different standards for people that can be clinically diagnosed with certain things. That to me is weird. Like, you either double down and say, okay, all law is built upon the bedrock of normalcy, or you have to make provisions for everyone. You can't just choose all right, these two guys get it.
We're kind of in that Jordan Peterson mindset, and we're trying to take both sides into account.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan Peterson was speaking specifically about time, the role that time plays in the notion of free will and determinism.
Okay.
But this seems to be more along the lines of, it's like, I tried flipping this around just now in my head. Instead of talking about someone doing something bad, how about we talk about someone not doing something good? So, for example, if you see someone falling into the swimming pool, and you would be expected, if a child falls into the swimming pool, as an adult, you would be expected for sure to jump in
Yeah.
and save
Yeah.
them. What if the person who sees the kid jumping in is like a paraplegic or, like
Mm-hmm.
disabled, that they
Yeah.
can't do that, or if they did that, they would both probably drown. Then the
Or
people
just somebody
rush.
who's scared of water. Just someone who's scared
Sure.
of
Yeah,
water.
it could be, but I'm using sort of an extreme so that it's as
Okay.
clear as possible. um, so the people rush out of the house and they see the kid, basically going under,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to turn to the person in the wheelchair and go, "What the fuck are you doing? Just, sitting there in your wheelchair, you selfish asshole," right? But if it's a fully bodied, a able-bodied person just standing there going, "Oh my god, shit, that's happening," right? People would come out and go,
Instagram,
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Gotta get so many
actually, in
clicks.
some places, if we're going to talk about law, in some places, if you fail to do something that is within your, we touched on this in a previous episode, actually. If you fail to do something to relieve the suffering or stop someone from being injured or killed, that was within your power to do so, you can also be
Yeah, suffer the penalty
suffer
of
the
the law.
legal consequences of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of turning it around
Yeah.
in the other direction.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how the fact that the person, is in, what part of that would lead to determinism versus free will?
Well,
The
here's
person
the
in the,
thing. I have a suggestion. The whole idea about free will is that it comes from deliberation. If you believe in free will, at some
Mm-hmm.
point, even if let's not explain it all the way because we can't, but we believe that the act of deliberating, thinking about something,
Mhm.
is what gives us our what frees us
Mhm.
from determinacy. What if your cognitive faculty
Mhm.
is such that it doesn't allow you to deliberate
Mhm.
properly, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yep.
Like, and what if your cognitive faculty is your brain state, a physical brain state, then whatever caused your physical brain state is what is dictating
Mhm.
whether or not you are so-called free from the physical state.
So basically, like a self-driving car, whoever made that car is kind of responsible for it, or whoever
Exactly.
programmed it.
If a Tesla, if a Tesla or whatever, or self-driving car runs over there's a kid
Kitten.
crossing the street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. There's a kitten crossing the street, so it swerves and hits a kid on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Elon Musk gets
That's the thing. Does
shit
that
for
mean that
that.
our parents are responsible for whatever we do?
No, come on. A
No,
Tesla is
no.
not a
Because then their
sentient,
parents were responsible for
conscious
them.
thing.
No, but
being.
here you're saying that you're saying that your parents are responsible for your chemical makeup, which is not really fair because they
True.
also,
True.
and you're saying that they are entirely responsible for all of your experiences.
But I think what
Mm.
Vince says points out something. We we go up the chain. For example, with Tesla, the Tesla like drives over a kid or something, and we go up the chain and we land with Elon Musk, or let's say the developer that wrote the software or whatever. So we try to find the responsible entity, and
Mhm.
where do we land? We land with the first conscious being that
Mhm.
we can find.
Yep.
And for me personally, it points to the fact that, so actually,
Okay.
Michael, you said something in the break. You explained something about coherency and completion. I think it would be beneficial if you introduce that topic, because I think it's an interesting angle, and
Oh
for me
yeah.
it's important because I think my view on determinism kind of depends on that concept.
Principle. Okay. All right. Well, then, for the benefit of, yeah. So I was talking about Kurt Gödel. He was a German, I believe, or Austrian, German, mathematician and logician. Probably one of the most brilliant minds since Aristotle. But anyway, so he has this. He did a he has what's called the incompleteness theorem, and it's a mathematical thing. So he did the whole thing with the Greek letters and yeah. But what he did was he proved, let alone let's put aside what he proved. The principle is that a system is either coherent or complete, cannot be coherent and complete. So, for example, the example I was giving to Dolores is a dictionary. A dictionary is complete. It contains every word in the English language. So basically, you should be able to communicate anything you want to communicate that is communicable in English. You have it all in a dictionary. However, a dictionary means nothing if you don't have it's coherent. It's complete, but it is not coherent. It doesn't have any meaning until you have something from outside. It requires some external knowledge that you have acquired from, like, you need to know English in order to understand an English dictionary. Or if you say it's a language that you don't know, some long lost language, and you're decoding this language, you need some external knowledge of how languages work, or you need some external knowledge to understand what's inside the book. Even though the book is complete, it is not coherent. Even though it's complete, it's not coherent. Anyway, so.
But how would you know? How would you know it's complete?
No, I'm just telling. We're just assuming that
Okay.
let's just say there was a dictionary that was complete. I'm
Okay.
probably
Okay.
you're right. That was complete. It would not be like you could not, by reading the dictionary, learn the English language, even though every word is in there with the definitions. You would need to know the English language to understand what the dictionary is saying, right? Okay. So you would need external, but maybe that's not the best example. You can say, for example, a factory is coherent. It works, and you have creating bicycles or whatever, iPhones. But the factory, it is either gosh. Anyway, he proved by math that he actually did it in math, that a set of axioms is either complete or coherent. So if you create a set of axioms that math can be based on, it will be coherent.
So
it's really difficult to.
think,
okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point. Yeah, go on. Explain.
Okay. Sorry.
Why you thought that was
why
relevant.
I brought this up is, for example, what I was doing in my head is I was comparing like artificial intelligence with people consciousness, and like a computer, an artificial intelligence, it's coherent, I would say.
Yes.
So it's not complete because it needs to be kickstarted in a way. It responds to stuff, and I think we are different in the sense that, like, the physical world, it's coherent. If, as we said, if you shoot an arrow, it will you can calculate how far it will fly. But so the arrow is coherent, for example, but it's not complete because we are the thing that's kickstarting the arrow.
Yes.
We are shooting the arrow. And I personally see it the same with our bodies and our consciousness. The consciousness kickstarts whatever's happening with our bodies. Sure, we have some reflexes and stuff, but the concept of will, the driving force, intention, whatever you call it, is the missing piece, I would say. which is therefore like it's therefore the physical
And
realm
insofar,
is
sorry, so insofar as that would complete it, you're saying it is incoherent, and because it is incoherent, it is free from determinism. Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, you made the example with God in
Yes, in our
in our
conversation.
break,
Yes.
and I think we're
That our
just
consciousness
we're
is like that.
thinking, yes, we're
Mm.
thinking the same thing. For me, consciousness is God in a sense.
Okay.
Mm.
Yes, what I had said earlier was that if you drew a circle around the things of all if you drew a circle around the set of all things that are coherent, like the universe is coherent. If you were to say, and any external universes, you were to draw a circle around that, it would be coherent, it would be incomplete. And the thing that would be required to complete it would come from outside the circle of all things that are coherent. And what is outside of the circle of things that are coherent is necessarily incoherent. So I was telling him that my theory is that God is actually at base incoherent, and that he creates like little island of coherency within which he creates the universe, and logic and mathematics and everything that we consider to be coherence is just a small little patch within the large incoherent but complete. God is complete. Okay, and we can change the language afterwards, but in my opinion, God is complete and incoherent. And then there is, so yeah, that's where we were
So it's
coming.
like we exist in a complete and incoherent sandbox, kind of.
No.
Or
The incoherent is complete, and that is God. And the sandbox is this little zone where God goes, oh, how about I have these rules, logic, mathematics, and determinism, cause and effect,
but is the
all that.
Yeah,
sandbox
it's
complete?
No, the sandbox is coherent. It's a little island. It's a little tiny patch
It's
within.
coherent.
It's coherent within the large incoherent.
Mm.
Okay.
To me, the concept of free will is an answer to a question that we haven't been able to answer yet. Kind of similarly to deities being the answer to how we got here or what the purpose of life is. It's kind of like science hasn't come up with an explanation for it, and humans really, really like having explanations for questions. So, yeah, over time, it would make sense that people would develop an answer. It helps when everyone also believes in it with you. So free will is the answer to why did I do that? You wouldn't automatically think, well, it's because of my brain chemistry and because of all this. But I feel like as someone who's agnostic, I don't have an explanation of how we got here, like how even life originally formed. But just because I don't know the answer to that, I don't want to fill it with a wrong answer, which is the same reason why I can't explain consciousness or free will or how this happens. We have indicators and it may be just literally physical, but we can't prove that. But at the end of the day, I'd rather live with a question mark than with a bad explanation point.
So do you really, really think that you yourself, you do not have free will?
I think even if I did have free will, it would be extremely confined by the limits of physicality. Because I think we can agree that free will only exists for one within living things, to the extent of which we don't know. Like, technically, a tree could have free will. Like, am I going to grow here or there?
No.
Maybe I'll do a little thing like this. Like, how do we know that that's purely just based on the physical atoms of the tree, that it just had to grow there? Maybe it's just like,
We don't ultimately know anything. So we have to start with... No, it's not...
Oh my God, it just came to me. I'm sorry. I just, like, it just, because of what you were saying about the tree, that Jesus actually preaches agnosticism because he says, "Swear not at all." Swearing is like being sure. He says, "Don't swear by heaven because that's
Mhm.
like God's. That's like not none of your business. Don't swear by the earth because he goes, neither shalt thou swear by thy head, for thou canst not make one hair white or black."
Hmm.
Like basically, you don't know shit. You literally cannot control anything. You
Mhm.
are let your communication be yes or no. Whatever is more than that is evil. Yeah, you cannot, like you were saying about the tree. Can I grow here or there? No, the tree doesn't decide where he grows. The acorn drops where it drops, and the water comes and the sunshine, and then the tree grows as it is predetermined to grow.
We would
But I
assume
So
that, but
I
then
Well,
when
think
you look at
that's
insects,
nature,
then
isn't
you'd
it?
also think, like for instance, insects, like they have some more cognitive ability than a tree does. They have neurons, but is that enough for them to have free will? Did they decide to go to that berry or to that one, or did they just see like, oh, that one looks redder?
Yes, there's actually one of those
Instinct.
there's actually a one of those paradoxes set up about the donkey. There's the donkey and there are two equally attractive piles of hay,
Mm-hmm.
and he's exactly in the middle. And so which pile of hay does he go to? And basically the donkey starves to death because
That's great. Yeah, yeah.
because he cannot decide, and there's because they're both equally delicious, and
Mm-hmm.
he, and like, okay, say it's a left-handed donkey and he'll go to the left, but let's just say the left pile is just that much farther out of his reach,
Mhm.
to make
Mm-hmm.
it exactly so that as he looks at the left and the right, they are both equally attracted to him. Would the donkey starve to death, or would there be some collapse in
Mm.
the superposition, in his brain, and let him
Oh,
actually pick?
that's probably what would happen to a piece of software if you gave it like those parameters.
exactly, yes.
It would just like bug out.
Yeah, it would. There's a name
Ever
of
heard
that.
of blue screens?
No, but this is like a big problem. I'm sure you've heard about it, Loris, in computer philosophy. Is there's the problem of, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's where
Yeah,
basically,
I don't know the name either.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
but
But
I
yeah.
think it um it points out the same thing. I think I've been saying the same thing in like a a bunch of different
Ways.
examples or something,
Mhm.
and I think um I realized that I might have found a middle ground for Michael and me. Be, so like an explanation for my problem with determinism. I asked some time ago if determinism, it was when we discussed the Jordan Peterson thing, if determinism is just the concept applying to the whole thing, the whole universe, the whole realm, whatever, or if you can apply determinism to um, particular objects, events, or like things like that. And with the whole,
According to the definition on Google, it mainly focuses on human free will.
okay, yeah, that's the reason why I believe it's not the case, because I think determinism can only occur in, as you described, Michael, sandboxes, like specific realms,
realms.
zones. Yes, because as soon as you don't um, give, as you don't draw the lines, it becomes complete and therefore incoherent. And determinism is coherency, because you can always calculate everything because it's predetermined,
Hmm.
and it can't be applied to our being, our experience, because there's something missing. And I think for you it's probably God, for me it's consciousness, but it's all the same. It's pointing towards the answer that there is some driving force that isn't coherent and therefore not deterministic, I would say.
So
Okay.
are we incoherent consciousnesses existing in a coherent sandbox?
No, we're complete.
That's what I would say, yes.
Which one?
The one you said.
The one I said.
Yes, our consciousness is the incoherent
Mhm.
part
That's what it.
that completes the coherent sandbox.
Wow.
That's my conclusion.
Can I rephrase this to see if I got this right? You're saying that the body is complete. No, sorry.
No, the
No.
body is coherent and our
Right.
consciousness
And it is
completes
completed
it.
by our. Right. Okay.
Yes, and our consciousness is the incoherent part.
Incoherence. Wow, that's interesting.
I'm just gonna have to think that. This is gonna take me a second. So I kind of can't help. Okay, no, you're right. For sure, our bodies are not complete, just simply for the fact that we must breathe and eat constantly. So yeah, I guess our body is not complete, but it is coherent.
Mostly.
So, well, I mean, as in it works. It is self-sustaining. So yeah, it's coherent, but it's incomplete. And the thing that completes it. Here's my thing. Okay, here's where I like your idea, but where I might object is that it is completed by something else that is also itself coherent and yet layered within.
You're breaking the rules here.
Yeah. No, because it goes in circles, right?
Yeah,
And so this is
yes, I see
complete.
that.
It's completed by something that is
Yes.
external to it, which is completed by something external to it.
Yes.
And that is why, for me, the ultimate is God, because all of our whatever it is that's making us all what we are, we all exist within one thing, and that one thing. Well, it's one thing, so we can call it whatever we want to call it, but it's one. It's not separate. It's not my consciousness and your
matrix.
consciousness. It's something outside of all of our consciousnesses that are allowing, within which all of our consciousnesses are allowed to exist. And so I tend to call it God. But
I
yes,
just
I
don't
can't
know.
really argue with that.
I was gonna say I just don't know how someone who is deterministic, like 100%, I don't know how that works. What kind of, if I tried to go through my life thinking I do not have free will, I think that would fuck me up. Like,
that's what I
Thing is-
said, but it's a useful lie.
I don't think it's useful to apply it in practice because that helps no one. Your experience as a human is one of free will. Like, we all have the feeling that we have the power to make decisions, and trying to convince yourself that's not what's happening isn't helpful on an individual basis.
yeah, but how do you learn?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if you do something bad,
I just stopped doing it.
No, I mean, like, if it's
like
determined,
if you stub your toe on a table, for example. Let's just start simple.
I kind of feel like that was always going to happen because I believe in determinism, but I also feel like I can learn to not do that anymore, which was also always going to happen.
Right? And then next time you will not do it.
Yeah.
So that's how you learn.
What it does change.
No, I'm referring to his question of how do you learn. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What he posed by it. And when I said earlier about a useful lie, that's harsh. That's actually incorrect. I shouldn't have said that. It's a useful shortcut.
The cheat.
It's a cheat because it's not a lie. It just helps you arrive at the same conclusion at a faster, more intuitive way. That's what I think.
Yes, I mean, if one believes in determinism and therefore abandons like all sense of morality. That is part of the determinism chain. And
Yes.
I think most people don't do that. That's also part of that chain. Like the fact that we're discussing it, we all think it makes a lot of sense, but I personally don't want to believe in it because, yeah, as you said, Emmanuel, I don't know how I would live with
I
that
also don't
belief.
see I don't see the functional superiority of it. I
I
don't see it
see
being
something
The
there that I think it
functional
does aid
superiority?
you with.
yeah.
Yeah. So like for me, right? It doesn't change the way I act because I still act out of free will, at least to my own perception. But what it does change is how I perceive other people's actions. Because I don't
Hmm.
see them fully acting out of free will. I see them being kind of pre-programmed. So like
Well,
if someone is
kind of,
incapable,
or because we are all kind of
well,
pre-programmed.
if
I
I looked at everyone as being pre-programmed, then you would
It
have to
does give.
kind of take out human emotion from it, and I still have human emotion, so I react to
How dare
people.
you?
Yeah, I know, right? Fuck me. uh no, but when it comes to assigning blame and responsibility to people, it does change the way I look at it, which is self-evident. Like for example, um I'm quite slow to assign blame on people, which is maybe something that Loris has experienced when we were talking about Jordan Peterson the other day. I
I really
generally
did.
try and like think about, okay, maybe their programming is a bit differently than mine, so maybe they're trying to come at it from this different angle.
Yeah.
I generally try and exonerate someone before assuming, oh, like they're ass, because I'm thinking about them having a different programming than I do, or at least having different deterministic precursors.
Mm-hmm.
but I would say that stuff is. I mean, so you're using determinism to do that stuff. People
Yeah.
do that stuff without using determinism.
Yep.
So it
But it's a lot easier too if you don't think that free will is truly free will.
yeah, but just because it's easy to do something doesn't mean it's right.
Doesn't mean it's
Yeah,
wrong.
that's a double-edged
No,
sword.
but
Yeah.
no, I'm making your argument against free will back at you about determinism, because you were saying, oh well, that's intuitively so free will, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But then you're saying, well, I'm using determinism because it's the easy way to.
Well, no, because it makes sense to me. So it's the easy way to go around free will.
No, he's not justifying. Hang on, he's not justifying. He's not justifying determinism by saying that you asked, "How do you live?" and he's answering the question. This is how you would live if you. This is how you would relate to people if you believe in determinism.
Right.
You would kind of have to tell yourself a whole new narrative to
Mhm.
actually create all the virtues that we already need. You'd have to recreate those under the narrative of of determinism, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then you would need to rebuild everything basically,
Yeah.
in a lot more complex way. And
Mhm.
like I said, free will is a useful shortcut. I think that we need to believe that we have free will because that gives us something to live for.
For me individually, I do that. So
Well,
I don't alter absolutely anything about how I see myself. Obviously, I see my own physical like limitations, but so does everyone else. So my own individual experience is not changed by my beliefs about determinism.
Hmm.
So you
so
think?
you don't really believe in it.
My introspective beliefs,
Yeah,
no.
you don't really believe in it.
What? Determinism.
Determinism.
Yeah, I do.
I think
What do you fucking mean?
You're lying.
What the fuck?
It's
Did I
it's
say
for
something?
thee, but not for me.
Wait, did
okay,
I just contradict myself?
here's a point. If you believe in free will, really free will, okay, then change it to a question. Um, how can you believe in free will and No, sorry. Start again. If you believe in free will, you should be able to, like that, believe in determinism freely. You should be able to say, okay, boom,
Sure.
free will. I freely decide to
Mhm.
believe in determinism, right?
Mhm.
But you can't.
Sure.
Why can't you?
Well, you
And the
could.
reason when you no,
You
just
don't.
change your belief. The reason that you can't is because because you are set a certain way. There is something in there that's set to not.
But maybe
believe
the
in it.
thing that makes you set to be that is your consciousness, that juju at the steering wheel, which is what Loris
Yes.
believes in.
Okay,
So it's
Loris,
not like that thing is just a piece of blubber that does everything and doesn't have a backbone. It does have a backbone. It's just not what your physicality completely defines.
And what is it that creates the shape of this backbone? If you will excuse my kind of
Who
sleepy
knows?
metaphor. No, but
I think it's kind of a give and take,
are
honestly.
you
I think it's
saying that
influenced by your
this
physicality.
that the backbone of your consciousness, like what you're born,
Mhm.
boom, and you've got this consciousness, and it's going to guide the way you think about everything in life,
Mhm.
but it itself is random. In which case, you're saying random is the answer, or you're saying it's based in something genetic, in which case we're back to determinism. In every case, no matter what it is you say that shaped the way your mind is shaped, it brings you back to determinism. And I hate that as much as the next person, but I can't find a way around it. I'm looking for a way around it.
There's 100% deterministic aspects to it, but determinism is defined sort of as the absence of
Yes.
spiritual consciousness, right? So
Wait, what?
Or
It
super,
is. It is.
maybe not
Yeah.
spiritual, but a supernatural
supernatural influence.
What we were just referring to earlier was as incoherence.
Well, then
Not
you're
the
gonna have
absence
to
of a consciousness, but as one that exists outside of the deterministic sandbox.
Okay. Are you sort of saying that anything spiritual has no causality to it?
Yes.
Oof. Are we talking about spirituality?
Oh, let's not talk
to it
about
now?
causality.
Let's not talk about spirituality.
I couldn't say,
Okay.
honestly. I do think that if consciousness is actually the way that the car is driven, the car influences
part
the
of the
driver.
car.
It works both ways,
Yes.
right?
So, say that again.
I'm saying if consciousness is the explanation, if like a soul or a spirit is the explanation for consciousness and not like your physical brain,
Mhm.
I think that it goes both ways. So the influence goes to your physical, obviously, you can move around, but your senses and the way that your brain perceives those feeds back to your consciousness and changes it.
Absolutely.
Right.
I have
They're
zero
informed by
problem
each.
with that.
They're informed by each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which would also explain why you only have a soul, a spirit, a consciousness if your brain is working to a certain degree.
Yeah. So it's Michael kind of has has caught me here because the spirit is therefore not entirely free of causality because it's influenced by the physical body.
For sure.
But
But
that's okay. That doesn't completely
yeah,
catch me.
I think it's just what there is an element there, a tiny one in your consciousness that's like
Just a
completely
spice.
out there, outside of the deterministic realm, and it completes that realm.
But don't you think that there is a way for that to be explained physically? Like if we had ways to measure
There
the
probably
intricate
is, but it's
build of your mind, could that not be?
it's entirely speculation, though.
Yeah.
I don't think you can observe that. You can't prove it.
I agree with him there that if there is a spirit outside the body, that can't be that by definition. It won't be
No, I don't
described
think
physically.
that. No, I mean, if we could, like, for instance, if we could analyze the state of the weather right now, we could predict the weather accurately for like the next year. If we
Not-
if we knew all the factors involved, then
In
we could
climate.
predict it.
Wait. Because
Oh,
include
boy.
include no because the weather includes the butterfly, the butterfly effect. So I flutter my hand like this, and I probably caused a hurricane.
Okay, yeah. So including
hurricane.
including
but
everything.
wait, hang on a sec. Not wait a sec. Did I move my hand freely? Right?
I don't
Did
know,
move my
but
hand-
I'm
Did
just
I
saying.
move-
Okay, delete
did I
delete
move my-
life, delete life from the planet, so we don't have any of these living
Okay.
things
No,
fucking it
just
up.
delete him from the planet.
Stop shaking your hands, fucking up my experiment. No, like the rock. Okay, we can. No, I mean like a complex system. Like the weather is infinitely complex, and we're at the point right now where we don't believe we'll ever really be able to analyze it to the point where we could accurately predict it. Did I say okay? Climate, yeah. Where we could accurately predict it like 10 years from now, even though technically that would be possible.
Yes.
Right? What if we could take that idea and move it to your brain? Even if we say right here, we probably will never be able to analyze it to the point where we could accurately predict what you're gonna do next. That idea that it's possible doesn't just get thrown out the window.
Yes, I can't, like, you can't
I think
prove
I
it, but
know
I
what I mean.
can't disprove it. I
Right.
can't disprove that idea.
Yeah, the
Think so.
idea that it's possible is it's not even a theory. It's hypothetical.
Yes.
But why is that hypothetical? But predicting the
sorry,
weather if
someone
you
just-
know all the variables isn't.
Yeah, sorry. I just
I
got
think
lost.
that's
I've
almost
lost-
just as hypothetical
Is it?
Yes,
Yep.
it is.
because the
No.
climate is such a complex thing that it's probably slightly
Wait.
less complex than something like mind or consciousness, but it's at a level of complexity that by the time you were able to accurately predict wind velocity for the forthcoming
wait.
365 days, you would
That's why I don't think it's possible. Like,
Wait a
not,
second.
we can't do it, but theoretically, yeah.
Wait,
Go on.
stop.
Michael is
Yes, what
dying
he was
over
about to
there.
say. I am. Because we're talking about complexity and we're saying, oh, but such enormous complexity. How no matter how complex the weather is, like given a little ripple, whatever, it's still a finite amount of complexity. It's not
Yeah.
an infinite amount of complexity.
It's
And
measurable,
it's-
technically.
we will never be able to know it,
Mhm.
but it is still a finite amount of complexity, and a
Mhm.
finite amount of complexity, the universe can still process it. It's still calculable by the universe, maybe not by us or any computer we'll ever build, but the fact that it is anything short of an infinite complexity will be, in principle, calculable by the system that is sustaining it. And if
So-
that system is the universe, then we have a lot of processing power.
Yeah, if we, I mean, this is going to be ridiculous, but if that's true, if we assume that weather doesn't have a consciousness, because, like, yeah, you could apply the same thing to a human, a being, except you can't, because you can't perceive my thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not possible, in my opinion.
No, you're
And
right. Totally.
with the weather, it's possible, and because it's not possible with my thoughts, I am acting on free will to a certain degree.
But you could perceive your thoughts if we had the ability to analyze your entire brain state down to the electron,
No.
and we knew what that electron
It's not
meant.
gonna be
there.
possible.
No, I don't think so. I would be with him on this, that.
Okay.
Hell
but
yeah,
then-
Michael support.
But yeah, because because I do believe that the consciousness. See, where I think me and Loris differ is that I think that the mind is, because I'm a theist. I believe God created the mind, so I ultimately blame God for whatever mind he gave me, because he is the ultimate cause. That is my definition of God, among other definitions, that he is the ultimate cause. And I don't believe that my spirit was uncaused, or my mind or my consciousness or whatever word you want to use for it. I can't believe that is uncaused because there'd be so many uncaused elements. What would be allowing all these, like, because you have one and he has one and we all have one, where are all these uncaused elements coming from? Are they caused by the fact that your father impregnated your mother? Is that causing your spirit to come into your mind, to come, or
Yeah.
consciousness to come into? Then that is the cause. If that is the cause, then we're back to determinism. That's my problem. And he seems to um not go there. He just says that the consciousness is uncaused. And if he's right, then he's right.
Yeah.
But if he's not right, then we're stuck with determinism.
Yeah, I see your point, and I'm pretty tempted to go there, like
Just
to
try
call it God,
It's
but
fun.
I just hate the word God.
Well, you know.
But I mean, I'm willing to call it God, but
Use Santa.
yeah, Santa Claus.
It's the government.
For me, it's just I think I would be lying, like that classic phrase that, oh, we are all one being, blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, no, you
I
don't have to
think
go there.
that's if I would call it God, I would kind of agree on that statement, because we ultimately then we are just God. Or are we differing here? Are you saying that God caused our consciousness? Or are you saying that we are part of God's consciousness?
This would be a topic for a completely different, and
Yeah.
honestly, I can give you a shortcut and tell you that I would just be spitball. I would just be I would just be shooting ideas and opinions.
Okay.
I don't think we can know this. I have a belief about what I think it is, but I would not. I don't think I could argue it powerfully against
I would
it.
settle on that we're just all individually God's brain cells. Okay. And over time, he's gotten smarter because there's more of us, but we are less functional. So I guess it kind of evens out. Right. So we are about there on time.
Yeah, God seems to
Damn
be
it.
pretty
Yeah.
dumb.
As usual, we can never be done with this topic. Although Raymond commented that he'd like to know what everyone's favorite songs are. Loris has mentioned it's Stairway to Heaven. Good choice. What about
And
you, Michael?
that's an objective fact.
So is that just all of our...
But that was predetermined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because we're all one being God, it has to be all of ours, right?
Well, yes. Obviously.
Michael, what's your favorite song?
Do you have one?
I'm strongly biased. I'm a songwriter.
Oh,
My
Is it your own?
my favorite
Obvious.
songs would obviously no
We can plug
well,
those at the end.
because nothing can speak to you. No song can speak to you like your own song. I think. I don't know. No song can speak to you that is like a song that you have spoken to. And I think that's the difference between a song that you've heard and that speaks to you and a song that you actually spoke into existence.
Can we find these songs anywhere?
Yeah, I suppose. Yes. Yes.
If you'd like, you can let people know.
You have a link or something, you can plug it.
We can put that
Okay.
in. What about you?
Well, were you stuck?
Why would I have to be stuck for you to answer? I've got my song.
No. Okay, you got your song in your head.
It was determined.
That's a very difficult question. But one song comes to mind, and that is a song by Creed. Man, what's the name of it though? It's something about a child. Something.
Arms Wide Open.
Arms Wide Open. That's it. Yeah, I
Not a
like
bad
that song.
Not a bad song. Yeah.
You guys have cool answers.
What's yours?
Despacito. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my god.
No, yeah, right, from Joji.
I don't know it.
No one knows it.
Yeah, right.
Only the
Yeah, right.
Only the homeboys know it. All right. Well, does anyone have anything to add, plug, link, promote?
Closing thoughts.
No, none of those.
No? Okay.
Those could go on for hours.
Any suggestions for what a next episode would be about, or a future episode? Would be about?
Yeah.
I think we're trying to do within the next 2 weeks. We want to cover the paranormal, and
It's gonna end just like this. It's gonna be
Yeah,
like
it is.
it's gonna
Do
be
we know?
a quagmire of words. It's gonna be terrible.
at the end, we still don't know anything.
Yeah, but at least that one doesn't have that many implications. It's like, okay, we don't have any little green dudes, all right.
Paranormal's gonna be fun though. We have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know if we're gonna do that next week or the week after, but the other topic we wanted to cover in the next 2 weeks is capitalism versus communism.
Equally fun.
Communism versus
Loris has
capitalism.
to be there for that.
Do I?
Right?
Does he?
You do. Yeah.
Does he?
Are we gonna
Yeah.
like fist fight or?
We're gonna tongue fight. Sounds worse than fist fighting, but yes.
Yeah, it does.
Something I don't want to watch.
I'll bring my fists.
We'll
That's
go to a
about it.
different website.
No.
Yeah. That's
Well,
it from
thanks
my side.
to our 2 awesome guests for coming on, and thanks to everyone for watching.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all played very, very nice, even though we obviously had differing views, and that's what we want to do here at Branch Out, is more discussion and less debate. Just, everyday people talking about, well, this one may not have been an everyday topic.
It affects everyone every day, though.
This is true. But
we should all be doing it. We should
True.
all be doing it.
True.
Doing what?
We are unique in probably the universe as being the only creatures who have the faculty to engage in this.
Compare women with stamp cards.
With stamp collections.
That is
That's
so
going to
not
be a
bad.
cutout clip.
That's gonna.
I
yeah,
marked
it's
it.
gonna, there was no. Whatever.
All right.
Yeah, but anyway,
stuff.
we should enjoy the fact that we have the faculty to be doing this with our brain. We should all be armchair philosophers, and we should all be, thinking about
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
fundamental questions and
Yeah.
even the ones that we'll never have answers to.
Absolutely.
Like
That's-
capitalism and communism.
Ism.
Uh-oh. Any ism.
Mm.
Well, thanks to our watchers again. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share the video.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you all in another week.
If you'd like to follow us anywhere, we are anywhere. All the links are down in the description, pretty much on every platform you can think of, except for the crappy ones. And yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback as usual.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Have
Thanks,
a good
guys.
night. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
Hopefully see you again soon.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.